ask me, what is love? And I could answer you with definitions, but definitions are the graveyard of truth. Because the moment you define something, you kill it. You pin it to paper like a dead butterfly, and what was alive, what was moving, breathing, transforming, becomes a corpse of words. But there is something I need you to understand before we begin. In the deepest spiritual traditions, East and West, there exists a distinction that modern thought has forgotten. A distinction so profound that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. There is knowing about, and there is knowing. The first is knowledge. The second is something else entirely, something so intimate, so dangerous, that the great spiritual teachers built their entire science around it. And love, true love, the love that dissolves the boundaries between self and other, is knowing. If you are ready to understand what this means, if you are willing to have your certainties shattered, please subscribe, because what follows is not comfortable, but it is necessary. Let's begin. Before love arrives, there is always a wound, not the wound of a specific moment, not a trauma you can point to and say, here, this is where it began. Number. It is subtler than that. It is the wound of incompleteness, the wound of separation, the wound of the constructed self, the false identity that believes it stands alone in the universe, that it is fundamentally isolated, fundamentally insufficient. You carry this wound from birth. It is baked into the structure of your consciousness. You are born believing you are separate, believing you are not enough, believing that somewhere in another person, in an achievement, in a possession, wholeness exists. And so you search outside yourself. You search in the eyes of others, hoping to see reflected back a self that is whole. You search in accomplishments, thinking that proof of worth will finally silence the inner voice that whispers, you are not enough. And then, and this is crucial, you encounter love. Or rather, you encounter a person, and in that moment, your psyche does something extraordinary. It projects onto that person all of your longing, all of your unfinished business, all of your unlived potential. You do not fall in love with a person. You fall in love with your own shadow, the self you abandoned, the self you were not allowed to be, the self that lives in your unconscious, calling to you, begging to be recognized. The great psychologists understood this. They called it projection. They understood that when you believe you love another, you are often loving the mirror they hold up to your own fragmentation. The beloved is a mirror, but it is not a normal mirror. It is a mirror of your own constructed identity, your own self-deception, your own deepest wounds and desires. When you look at your beloved, you do not see them clearly. You see a reflection, distorted, magnified, idealized, of the parts of yourself you have disowned. If you were not allowed to be powerful as a child, you fall in love with someone who appears powerful, and you believe you are loving them, but you are loving the power you abandoned in yourself. If you were neglected, you fall in love with someone who seems attentive, and you believe you are loving their attentiveness, but you are loving the attention you never gave to yourself. If you felt unseen, you fall in love with someone who sees you, and you believe you are loving their sight, but you are actually beginning for the first time to see yourself. This is not cynicism. This is compassion. This is the beginning of real love, because real love does not begin with projection. Real love begins when the mirror breaks. The spiritual teachers have a term, transcendence of duality, the dissolution of separation into wholeness. But before transcendence in relation to existence itself, there must be a kind of transcendence with the beloved, a breaking of the false image, a recognition of reality underneath the projection. And this breaking is devastating. There comes a moment in every relationship, a moment that cannot be avoided no matter how much you love, no matter how perfectly the relationship appears to be functioning. The moment when you truly see the other person, not as the mirror of your longing, not as the completion of your incompleteness, but as a separate human being, flawed, wounded, incomplete in ways that do not match your incompleteness. In that moment, the mirror breaks, and what happens is not pretty, because now you are faced with a choice that determines whether what you feel will remain a fantasy or transform into something real. You can either, 1, reconstruct the mirror, find a new projection, remain in the comfortable delusion that this person is your completion. 2, remain in the broken mirror. Stay with the reality of who they actually are, flaws and all. Most people choose one, and that is why most relationships are simply reenactments of old wounds. 2 people using each other to avoid the painful work of self-recognition. But the ones who choose 2, the ones who remain in the broken mirror, they begin to experience something that cannot be named with ordinary language, a direct knowing, a tasting of something real beneath all the fantasy. Because now, for the first time, they are not loving an image, they are loving a person. And loving a person, truly not the fantasy of a person, requires something impossible. It requires that you first die. Listen carefully. When you love someone through projection, through the need for them to complete you, that love has a specific quality. It has desperation, it has hunger, it has the signature of lack. Your beloved can feel it. Whether consciously or not, they feel the weight of your need. They feel that they are responsible for your wholeness. They feel the burden of being cast as your savior, and they resist, or they collapse under the weight, or they stay and slowly become resentful, because they cannot be what you need them to be, the missing piece of your puzzle. But there is another kind of love, a love that arises not from need, but from overflow. A love so powerful, so all-consuming, that it burns away the self, not the other self, but the needy self, the self that seeks completion. The great spiritual teachers speak of this as the dissolution of the false identity, but dissolution not of consciousness, dissolution of the illusion of separateness. When you die to your need, when your small, terrified self dissolves, something extraordinary happens. You become capable of loving someone who does not complete you, who cannot save you, who is like you, wounded and incomplete. And paradoxically, in that acceptance of incompleteness, something approaches wholeness. Not because the other person fills your void, but because you have stopped believing there was a void in the first place. Here is where it becomes very subtle. In the deepest spiritual traditions, there is a practice called conscious witnessing, observing without judging, seeing without needing to fix or change or possess. When 2 people practice this witnessing with each other, this conscious observation without possession, something happens that is almost impossible to describe. They begin to know each other, not knowledge about each other, but a direct knowing. The beloved becomes transparent to you. You see their wound, you see their fear, you see the exact moment when their constructed identity emerges to protect them, you see the child they were, you see the person they might become, and they see you, really see you, not your mask, not your carefully constructed image, your actual self, your vulnerability, your longing, your wound. This seeing is terrifying because you are no longer hidden. You are no longer protected by the fantasy of who you think you are. But something else happens too. The more truly you are seen, the more the constructed self becomes irrelevant. The more it falls away. And what emerges is something unexpected. You become real. The philosophers call this authenticity, not as an abstract concept, but as a lived state. The state of being fundamentally honest, fundamentally exposed, fundamentally alive. Now we arrive at something very deep. In the deepest spiritual understanding, there is a teaching. The beloved is a mirror of the divine, the infinite, the transcendent. This does not mean the beloved is God or the infinite. It means that in truly seeing another human being, in that act of witnessing without possession, without need, without fantasy, you are touching something sacred. Because in that moment of true seeing, duality collapses. Your seeing and their being become one. Your consciousness and their consciousness touch. The ancient teachers called this state return to unity, and it can happen between two human beings. But, and this is crucial, it can only happen after the projections have been burned away, after the fantasies have been destroyed, after the constructed self has been humiliated and stripped of its defenses. You do not arrive at true love directly. You arrive at it through the destruction of false love. And this destruction is what we mean when we speak of love as a death. There is a concept in spiritual literature called longing, not as a lack, but as a hunger for the infinite. And here's something that might trouble you. Even in the deepest love, even in the moment when you and your beloved are most united, longing remains, a yearning, an ache, an incompleteness, not because the love is insufficient, but because true love opens you to something infinite. And the finite human being, no matter how beloved, can never fully contain the infinite, so there is always yearning, always reaching, always the feeling that beneath the surface, something more profound awaits. The lesser spiritualists thought this was a problem. They thought the goal was to reach a state where yearning ends, where desire is finally satisfied. But the greater teachers understood differently. They understood that longing is not a problem to be solved. It is the signature of a soul that has awakened. It is the mark of someone who has glimpsed something infinite and can never again be satisfied with the finite. In love, this manifests as a paradox. You are completely satisfied with your beloved, and simultaneously, you yearn for something you cannot name. Both are true. At the same time, this is not pathology. This is evolution of consciousness. Love breaks you, not because love is destructive, but because your current structure cannot hold what love demands. Your defensive walls cannot remain intact and let another truly in. Your false self cannot be defended and simultaneously be authentic. Your need for control cannot be maintained and simultaneously surrender to another. So love breaks these structures. It cracks the carefully constructed persona. It shatters the illusions you built to feel safe. And in the breaking, you are exposed. And in the exposure, you are terrified. And in the terror, if you do not run, if you do not reconstruct the defenses, something unprecedented happens. You discover that what you feared most, Being seen, being known, being completely vulnerable is not annihilation. It is liberation. Because the false self that you were protecting, it was never real in the first place. It was a mask, a character in a play. And when the mask falls, what remains is not nothing. What remains is your actual self, your core being, the seat of your deepest truth. And this core, the ancient teachers tell us, is not diminished by being known. The heart becomes more itself, the more it is seen. This is where we return to the beginning. Love is not knowledge. Knowledge is something your mind gathers, processes, stores, and uses. But knowing, true knowing, is something else. It is a state of your being. It is what you are, not what you understand. When two people truly love each other, when both have died to their false selves, when both have surrendered their need for the other to complete them, when both stand naked and seen, a knowing emerges that cannot be explained or analyzed or broken down into words. You simply know this person, and you are known by them. This knowing is not intellectual, it is cellular. It is in your bones. It is the way your body recognizes its other, the way your soul recognizes its mirror. The greatest teachers say this knowing is a taste of what awaits in ultimate union with existence itself. Because the love between humans is meant to be a practice, a preparation for the infinite love of union with the transcendent. But that is another teaching. For now, understand this. Love breaks you so that you can know, and what you know cannot be spoken. It can only be lived. If this teaching has entered you, if you feel in your bones that something here is true, then you are ready for what comes next. Because understanding love theoretically and becoming love are two different things. In the next video, we will speak about the pain, the breaking, the longing, the yearning that love awakens. Because love is not the destination, love is the path. And the path has many faces: beauty and terror, union and separation, death and rebirth. Are you ready to walk it? If this resonates, if you hear your own truth reflected back to you, like this video, because like says, this is real, this matters, subscribe, because the next teaching goes deeper into the territory of love's devastation and transformation. Comment. Tell me, have you experienced the breaking of the mirror? Have you faced the moment when your beloved became real to you instead of a fantasy? What happened in that moment? Let others read your truth. Because in sharing what we truly feel, we give permission to others to feel it too. Thank you for being here. The path continues.